Have you ever wondered, in the silence of your grief, whether the soul you loved so deeply can still see the tears rolling down your face? Can they witness your prayers whispered in the darkness, your moments of overwhelming sorrow, or those unexpected bursts of joy that remind you they once existed? This question has haunted humanity for centuries, and tonight, through the authentic teachings of Saint Teresa of Ávila, Doctor of the Church and Master of Mystical Theology, you will discover the profound truth that the Catholic Church has always proclaimed. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss more teachings and counsel from Saint Teresa. You sit in your living room, perhaps looking at a photograph, perhaps holding a piece of jewelry that once belonged to them, and you wonder, are they truly gone? Or do they somehow remain present in a way your earthly eyes cannot perceive? The ache in your heart tells you that love this deep cannot simply vanish into nothingness. Your soul recognizes a truth that your mind struggles to accept. The bonds forged in authentic love transcend the boundaries of physical death. Tonight, you will understand why your intuition is correct. Saint Teresa of Ávila, writing in her authentic work, The Interior Castle, described how the soul, once united with God, participates in a clarity and understanding that surpasses all human capacity. She wrote, "The soul that is united with God sees all things in the light of His eternity." This isn't mere poetry. This is the testimony of a woman who experienced mystical union with the divine and documented these experiences with scientific precision. Teresa taught that when the soul reaches perfect union with God, it contemplates reality not through human limitations, but through the infinite perspective of the Creator Himself. What does this mean for your loved ones who have passed into eternity? According to Teresa's authentic teachings and the Catholic Church's constant doctrine, the blessed in heaven enjoy the beatific vision. They see God face to face, as Scripture promises. In this divine vision, they don't lose their capacity to be aware of earthly realities. Rather, they perceive these realities through God's own knowledge. They see your life not as distant observers watching through some heavenly window, but as souls participating in God's own loving concern for you. Have you ever felt, in a moment of deep prayer or quiet reflection, that somehow your departed loved one was aware of your struggle? That inexplicable sense of their presence wasn't imagination. It was your soul recognizing a spiritual reality that your mind couldn't fully comprehend. Saint Teresa, in her documented experiences, confirmed that the communion between heaven and earth is not a metaphor, but a living reality. She wrote in her authentic letters, "The soul that loves truly in God never loses its connection with those it cherishes." Teresa's mystical experiences, recorded in her own handwriting and authenticated by the Church, reveal that souls in the state of glory perceive earthly events not through human emotions of worry or sadness, but through the perfect peace of divine understanding. When your mother passed away after her long illness, when your father closed his eyes for the final time, when your child was called home too soon, they didn't cease to love you. Their love was purified, elevated, and transformed into something far more powerful than human affection. In her work, The Way of Perfection, Teresa explained that the soul in mystical union with God becomes like a clear crystal that reflects divine light. She taught that this clarity allows the soul to understand, in God, the needs and struggles of those still on earth. Your loved ones in heaven see your prayers rising like incense before the throne of God, as the book of Revelation describes. The smoke of the incense, along with the prayers of the saints, went up before God from the angel's hand. But what exactly do they perceive when they look upon your earthly journey? According to Teresa's authentic mystical theology, they see your soul's deepest needs, not just your surface requests, but the profound spiritual growth that God is working within you. They perceive how God is using your current struggles to purify your heart, strengthen your faith, and prepare you for eternal union with Him. They see the big picture that you, in your earthly limitations, cannot yet fully grasp. When you kneel beside your bed at night and whisper, "Mom, if you can hear me, please help me get through this," you're not speaking to emptiness. The Catholic Church's teaching on the communion of saints, which Teresa embraced and lived, affirms that there is real communication between the Church militant, those on earth, the Church suffering, souls in purgatory, and the Church triumphant, the blessed in heaven. Your prayer doesn't fall on deaf ears. It reaches the heart of one who now loves you with the perfect love of Christ himself. Chapter 3, Call to Action. If this truth is touching your heart, write in the comments now, Saint Teresa, teach me to trust in the communion of saints. Your declaration might be exactly what another grieving soul needs to read to continue forward. Don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who needs this hope. Saint Teresa documented in her spiritual diary how souls who had passed from this life appeared to her, not in ghostly manifestation, but in mystical vision, confirming their continued existence and their concern for those still on earth. She wrote, "I have seen souls who have departed this life, and they burn with such pure love for those they left behind that they constantly intercede before the throne of the Most High. These weren't hallucinations or wishful thinking. These were mystical experiences that the Church has authenticated as genuine supernatural phenomena." In Teresa's understanding, based on her profound mystical experiences, the souls in heaven don't observe your life with human anxiety or worry. They see through the eyes of divine wisdom. When you're struggling with that impossible decision at work, when you're caring for an aging parent, when you're raising children in this difficult world, they perceive how God is present in every moment, even when you can't see His hand. They understand the spiritual significance of your trials in ways you cannot yet comprehend. The saint taught that souls in the beatific vision participate in God's own knowledge, which means they see the ultimate purpose behind every suffering, every joy, every seemingly random event in your life. They perceive how your current heartbreak is producing perseverance, how your financial struggles are teaching you to trust, how your health challenges are purifying your faith. They see the masterpiece that God is creating through the circumstances that feel chaotic to you. But here's what might surprise you most about Teresa's authentic teachings. The souls in heaven don't just passively observe your life, they actively participate in God's providence for you. In her letter to her spiritual daughters, Teresa wrote, "Those who have gone before us in holy death continue to labor for our salvation, presenting our needs before the Divine Majesty with an efficacy we cannot imagine. They're not helpless spectators. They're powerful intercessors working on your behalf. When unexplainable doors open in your life, when you receive help from unexpected sources, when you find strength you didn't know you possessed, this might well be the fruit of their intercession." Teresa understood that the communion of saints operates through divine love, which is infinitely more efficient than human assistance ever could be. A single prayer from a soul in the beatific vision, offered in perfect union with God's will, can accomplish more than 1,000 earthly efforts. Scientific studies on prayer and intercession, while unable to prove supernatural causation, have documented statistically significant improvements in the lives of those who are prayed for, even when they're unaware of the prayers being offered. Saint Teresa, without access to modern research, knew through mystical experience that prayer creates real effects in the material world. She taught that souls in heaven, freed from the limitations of physical bodies and human imperfections, can intercede with a power and purity impossible for those still on earth. Have you ever experienced what seemed like a miraculous intervention just when you needed it most? That financial provision that arrived exactly when you thought all was lost? That phone call from a friend just when you felt most alone? That sudden inspiration that solved a problem you'd been wrestling with for months? Teresa would tell you that these might very well be the fruits of intercession from those who love you in eternity. In her authentic mystical experiences, documented in The Interior Castle, Teresa described how the soul united with God becomes like a fountain connected to an infinite spring. She explained that just as water from a pure spring naturally flows outward to nourish the surrounding landscape, the love of souls in heaven naturally flows toward those they cherished on earth. Their love doesn't diminish with death. It becomes perfected, purified, and infinitely more effective. When your grandmother held your hand during your childhood fears, her love was real but limited by human weakness and mortality. Now, if she has attained the beatific vision, that same love flows through her with the infinite power of divine love itself. She loves you now not just with her human heart, but with the sacred heart of Jesus. She sees you not just through her grandmother's eyes, but through the eyes of God who created you and knows every thought you'll think before you think it. Teresa taught that this transformation of love in eternity is one of the greatest mysteries of our faith. The bonds you formed with those who have died were not temporary earthly attachments. They were eternal realities that death purifies rather than destroys. In her letters to friends who had lost loved ones, Teresa consistently reminded them, what seems like separation is actually the beginning of a deeper union, for now they love you with the love of God Himself. This means that your spouse who passed away doesn't love you less now. They love you more purely, more powerfully, more effectively than they ever could while limited by human nature. Your child who died young doesn't understand less about your pain. They understand it perfectly, seeing it in the light of God's eternal plan for your salvation and theirs. The parent who shaped your early years doesn't have less influence in your life now. They have infinitely more, as they intercede for you from the throne of grace itself. What then do the souls in heaven actually see when they look upon their families still on earth? According to Saint Teresa's mystical theology, they see your prayers as a fragrant offering that rises to the throne of God. They perceive your tears not as signs of defeat, but as precious sacrifices being offered for the salvation of souls. They witness your struggles not as meaningless suffering, but as participation in the redemptive work of Christ Himself. Teresa wrote in her spiritual diary, I have understood through divine illumination that souls in glory perceive the spiritual battles of those on earth, and they see victory where we see only defeat. They see growth where we see only pain. They see the hand of God where we see only chaos. This perspective, born from authentic mystical experience, reveals that your loved ones in heaven have access to a truth about your life that you yourself cannot yet see. When you're lying awake at 3 a.m., worried about your teenager's choices, your departed mother in heaven sees not just the surface rebellion, but the deep spiritual work God is doing in that young soul. She perceives the prayers you've planted, the example you've given, the love you've demonstrated, and she sees how God will use even the difficult seasons to shape that child into the person He created them to be. She intercedes not with human anxiety, but with divine confidence in God's perfect plan. Your loved ones see your financial struggles, your health challenges, your relationship difficulties, but they see them in the context of eternity. They perceive how God is using every circumstance to prepare you for the glory that awaits you. They understand that what seems like random suffering is actually purposeful purification. They see the crown of glory being woven through every thread of earthly trial. But perhaps the most beautiful aspect of Teresa's teaching is this. The souls in heaven don't just see your struggles, they see your hidden victories. Every time you choose forgiveness over bitterness, every moment you trust God despite not understanding, every act of love performed when you feel empty, they see these as brilliant lights shining in the spiritual realm. Teresa wrote, "The smallest act of pure love on earth creates rejoicing in heaven that we cannot imagine." They see when you keep praying even though God seems silent. They witness your faithfulness when no one else notices. They perceive your sacrifice when you give up something you wanted in order to serve someone else's need. They see the countless ways you allow God to love others through you, even when you don't feel particularly loving. These hidden acts of virtue are more visible to them than your most public achievements. When you visit their grave and tell them about your life, when you look at their photograph and ask for their guidance, when you whisper their name in your heart during difficult moments, they know. Not because they're watching you with physical eyes, but because they perceive your love and your need in the divine light that illuminates all reality. Teresa taught that this spiritual communion is more real and more intimate than any physical conversation you ever shared. Have you felt their presence during your prayers? Have you experienced peace after asking for their intercession? Have you received insights or strength that seem to come from beyond yourself? According to Teresa's mystical theology, these experiences point to the reality of ongoing communion with those who have passed into glory. You're not imagining their continued presence in your life. You're recognizing a spiritual truth that transcends physical death. This profound teaching carries a practical invitation for your daily life. If your loved ones in heaven can truly see your spiritual journey and intercede for your needs, then death has not ended your relationship with them. It has transformed it into something even more powerful. You can continue to share your life with them, not through wishful thinking, but through authentic spiritual communion rooted in the Catholic doctrine of the communion of saints. When you face major decisions, you can ask for their intercession, trusting that they will present your needs before God with perfect love and divine insight. When you feel overwhelmed by life's challenges, you can draw strength from knowing that those who once loved you with human hearts now love you with hearts perfected in divine love. When you miss their physical presence, you can take comfort in their spiritual presence, which is actually more real and more powerful than their earthly companionship ever was. Teresa lived this reality daily, maintaining spiritual friendships with souls who had passed into eternity. She would often write in her letters, "I feel more supported by those who pray for me from heaven than by those who pray for me on earth, for their prayers are perfected in divine love." This wasn't superstition. This was mature mystical theology based on authentic supernatural experience confirmed by the Church. Your grief, therefore, while real and natural, need not include the devastation of believing you've lost them forever. The Church teaches, and Teresa's mystical experiences confirm, that you will see them again, not just in some distant future resurrection, but in the ongoing communion that death cannot destroy. They remain part of your life, loving you, praying for you, and preparing a place for you in the eternal home you will one day share. So tonight, as you consider these truths revealed through Saint Teresa's authentic mystical experiences and confirmed by Catholic teaching, you're invited to live with a new perspective. Your daily struggles take on eternal significance when you realize they're witnessed by souls who see them in the light of divine purpose. Your prayers become more confident when you know they're supported by the intercession of those who love you perfectly in God. The next time you feel their absence acutely, remember Teresa's words. What appears to be separation is actually the deepest form of spiritual union. For now they love us not with human limitations, but with the very love of God. The next time you wonder if they know about the important events in your life, recall that they perceive these events not through earthly understanding, but through participation in divine omniscience. You are not alone in your earthly pilgrimage. You are surrounded by a cloud of witnesses who have completed their journey and now cheer you on toward the same eternal goal. Your loved ones who have died in Christ are not lost to you. They are your advocates, your intercessors, your spiritual companions who have simply moved